It's not easy to say who is the populist voters in all European countries, because voters in each country are different. But for sure, we cannot argue that populist voters in countries like Germany are the economic losers. If we look at Germany, for instance, at the very beginning of the so-called refugee crisis, media coverage was pretty much positive. It was more about this kind of welcoming atmosphere, about all these people helping refugees. But then things changed with what happened in Cologne, with the attacks on women in New Year's Eve. From that moment on, coverage became much more critical, and migration started to be seen as a security issue, as something which is intrinsically related to crime. And this is why more people started to think of migration as something negative. There is a kind of cleavage between Eastern and Western Germany on the immigration issue. Eastern Germans think that Germany has been a welcoming country towards migrants in the last years, because Western Germans share a kind of liberal cosmopolitan attitudes on such issues, which is something that is in the eyes of most Eastern German not something that they can believe in. They have a much more ethnocentric approach to politics. Right-wing populist party in Germany, the AfD, got more or less 12% at their last federal election in Germany. It didn't came out as an immigration-focused party. The main goal at the very beginning, when it was created, was criticizing the European Union. It came out in the so-called financial crisis, when many conservative Germans criticized the European Union for supporting Greece. The party got a lot of support, especially in Eastern Germany, and this has to do certainly to do also with skepticism in Eastern Europe towards migrants. The town where I come, for instance, is the town where the right-wing populist movement Pegida came out as an anti-Islamic movement, but in fact in Dresden there are almost no Muslims. So that's a kind of paradox that is typical of Eastern German, but not only Eastern German, probably is typical of all the Central and Eastern European countries. The Czech Republic is an interesting case because it's one of the few Central and Eastern European countries which is in fact becoming an immigration country. So this is a country in which migration is not per se a problem, but there is a kind of cultural problem connected to people coming from outside the European Union. And there is also a kind of opposition to any obligation imposed by the European Union on accepting migrants at all. So sometimes it's not just about migrants, it's about having migrants imposed from other states or from the European Union. There is a strong feeling, a strong nativist feeling, which means that, and this refers especially to Central and Eastern European countries, the feeling that the country belongs to those who have, to the natives and not to foreigners or refugees or immigrants. Foreigners cannot be part of the people. The Prime Minister in the Czech Republic is a populist, Babiš, the leader of the ANO party, but he's not a typical right-wing populist leader. He's criticizing the European Union for his welcoming refugee policy and above all for imposing or trying to impose binding quota on refugees on Eastern and Central European countries. He is someone who's criticizing corrupt politicians and claiming to be someone who comes from outside politics and is able to solve the problems under which the Czech Republic is suffering. In Italy, you have not only a socio-economical cleavage between North and South, you have also electoral political cleavage between the North and South. In the North, you have a right-wing populist party, the Lega Nord, which is putting the immigration issue in the headlines whenever it is possible. In the South, the Five-Star Movement is arguing more about politics and especially criticizing former governments for their economic policy. Compared to Germany, Italians do not have in politics all this kind of reference to Italian culture, to an Italian identity. Italy has always been a country which is pretty much divided, which has strong regional identities, and which had a party in the north, the Lega, in the 80s and the 90s, which was trying to campaign for secession. The Lega Nord, the right-wing populist party, is now pretty strong, but it came out later than in other countries. When you look at how Salvini, the leader of the right-wing populist party Lega, is arguing about migrants, it's more about crime, it's more about security, it's less about culture, and it's probably also less about Islam. He's much more looking at the society, claiming that migrants cause crime, which is actually not proved by data, but that's the way he's arguing. He's arguing that all crime issues in Italy are in a way related to migration.